Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our FSB National event this morning. Are we all there? I think so, yeah. I can see people coming in. Excellent. Okay, well, welcome everybody to our FSB National event this morning, Improving Customer Retention, How Human Factors Can Help. My name is Rob Bazzini, Development Manager for the Federation of Small Businesses in South West and Mid Wales. In a moment, I'll hand over to Barry Kirby of K-Sharp and also President of the Chartered Institute of Ergonomics and Human Factors. A huge thank you to you all for attending today, and in particular to Barry for your time and sharing your expertise with us today. Just before I do hand over, can I remind you, please, that we do have a Q&A function during the session today. We've received some questions for Barry before the session starts, but please do submit any questions through the Q&A based on what Barry's talking about today. Today's session will be recorded and will shortly be available on our FSB On Demand section of our website, in case you'd like to watch it again, or in case you'd like to suggest that other people watch. If you're not yet an FSB member, we'd love an opportunity to talk to you about the many, many benefits that membership can bring. Please do have a look at our FSB website again, www.fsb.org.uk, to arrange an appointment with a membership advisor. So in terms of the session today, retaining customers has perhaps never been more important for small businesses, bearing in mind the range of continuously damaging and serious challenges that businesses are continuing to face. I'm delighted that Barry's with us today. I know that he's going to be really helping us understand how we can improve customer retention by focusing on human factors. I think it's wise if I let Barry, our expert, explain exactly what we mean by human factors. I know that the session is going to be really useful today, having seen the content. It's a great session lined up. Perhaps without further ado, I hand over to Barry. Barry, welcome.
Let's make all the technology work. Thank you, Rob. Thank you very much for that introduction. I will share my screen now and let's get things underway. So hopefully that does that. So Rob, can you just confirm that that's all happy? Brilliant.
Yeah, fine. Thank you.
Fantastic. So thank you very much for the opportunity to come and talk to people and sharing the word about human factors. What I'm hoping to go through today, and say the next 30 minutes, is about what human factors is about and how it can help small businesses in particular, certainly from my experiences and what I think we can do. But I'll start off with why am I so arrogant to think that I can help inform you folks who run your own businesses in a wide range of different environments and different sectors. I've been running my own business now, so I run my own small consultancy called K-Sharp. We are based in Carmarthen now in South Wales. I have to get that right because we've just moved offices. And I've been running my own business now for 12 years after a history largely within the defense industry of the past 20 years of doing this thing called human factors. As Rob has already mentioned, our governing body really for our professional body for the human factors domain is the Chartered Institute of Ergonomics and Human Factors, or the CIEHF, as we call it, and it just beautifully rolls off the tongue. This year, I'm privileged enough to be the president of the organization, hence why I'm more than happy to talk about this idea of human factors, how it applies, and encouraging anybody who wants to know more to go and look at the CIEHF website and some of the materials that they have, and I'll show some links to them later. I haven't always been a human factors practitioner or an ergonomist, which is another term for human factors. My background is in engineering, and so I'm both a chartered engineer and a chartered ergonomist. But I'm a great believer in spreading the word about human factors and getting other people to at least understand a bit about what it means and what it's about. That's why 5 years ago, I started off my own podcast called 1202, the Human Factors Podcast. So anybody's more than encouraged to go and have a look at that. The idea is it's about sharing the stories of human factors practitioners and the range of domains they get involved with, everything from healthcare through to NASA, and how you apply human factors and ergonomics in them areas. it's not just about sharing stories between people, between ergonomists and human factors practitioners, but more about how to share it with people outside the profession and about how they give them some inspiration on how they can apply it. For the past couple of years, I've also then been part of an American podcast called Human Factors Cast, hosted by Nick Rome. I go on a weekly basis or fortnightly basis and talk about news of the day, issues that are going about, and how we can how can we engage with them. But they're kind of my hobbies, I guess, to a certain extent. My main work is depicted by the pictures on the left, where I've been privileged enough to work on a wide range of projects, including putting control systems and electronic architectures into things like tanks, into submarines, systems to go into fast jet cockpits, looking at how we can use synthetic training to replace live training, and looking at the business benefit, the cost benefit analysis of that. Looking at things like smart cities, smart communities, wearable technologies, and really about how we interact with that type of thing. And I'm currently also looking at satellite communication systems and being a MOD representative and expert in that domain as well. But the two pictures with me in it kind of depict the sort of stuff I like doing. Is when a customer comes along with a really early idea, and we get to go and play with it and see how we can improve what they do at a really early concept phase. So both them pictures are there are some early concept ideas from a client who's wanting to sell things into the MOD. We've been involved with that to make it user-friendly, keep people safe, and nothing makes you happier working with military equipment than getting wet, muddy in the middle of a field or a range somewhere, and both of them are two examples of that. So what am I going to talk about today in the time we've got? So I'm going to give you a bit of a definition about what human factors is about. I'm going to talk a bit about why should small businesses care. We've all got very few people around us. You might be running a business on your own. There might be a couple of you, up to maybe 10 people. Why should you invest that time and effort into looking at this thing called human factors? Some examples of where things can be applied, and probably things that everybody who is listening will be able to apply one way or another. And then where to go for some more information if you think this is something that is applicable to you. Throughout this, as Robert said, if you've got questions, please do put them in the Q&A. If you've finished this and you after this event has happened and you think there's a question there that you ask, I'm really easy to find on email, through our website, or on social media. Feel free to drop me a question at any time. So what is human factors in of itself? I've used this term quite a lot. I've also interspersed it with ergonomics. And for the sake of this, human factors and ergonomics are synonymous. They're the same thing. Human factors is a slightly more American term, can be applied to maybe a bit more systems type approach. Ergonomics, we possibly think of when we're looking at our office chair or our keyboard and we see the word ergonomic. It's about that fit. But for the sake of this and for the way we talk about it in the profession, they're the same thing. You might also hear things like UI and usability and things like that as well. Again, all come into this. When we look at the definition, if you go onto the CIHF website, if you go onto the website of the IEA, the Institute of Ergonomics and Institute of Ergonomics Association, then you will see a 2-paragraph definition that I can never remember, if I'm brutally honest, which is terrible being the president, but that's the way it is. And so I use the definition that I've got at the top, which is the interaction between humans and technology. It is that space between making sure that we can use technology, and that can be any sort of technology, efficiently and effectively. But the eagle-eyed amongst you will notice that I've put a little squared sign a bit above the humans bit as well, because it isn't just about humans and technology. Because we think about organizations are full of people, and it's about how we interact with each other. We might use technology to enable that, but fundamentally it's about how we interact with each other. So that's why I refine my definition is between humans and technology, and it's bringing them 3 things together. For the sake of this presentation, really what we're talking about is the interaction between people, and we'll talk about which people, and your business. If you think of your business as that entity that we want people to engage with, human factors in and of itself is not just a thing on its own. It brings in these different elements, these different disciplines. So psychology, the way people think; sociology, the way people interact; biomechanics, if you're bringing in a new product that you expect people to wear or to use; does it actually fit with the way that we as people, our joints work, our limbs work? Physiology and anthropometry, always the word that really trips me up. But it's about making sure that if we're developing things like clothing or bag, anything that people are going to use or wear, will it fit? Will it actually be there? What is the user experience is really important about. So it's not just about the engagement people have, but actually make sure that's a positive engagement and understanding how to make that engagement real and understand what people have with it. Visual design, using the interface design is probably one of these things that people most associate with what we do, things like website design and things like that. And I will talk a bit more about websites later. But industrial and interaction design, if you're producing things in a factory, you know, are the processes and the elements around that you've got within the factory or that you expect people to use, how do they fit with the human? And fundamentally engineering, the idea of solving problems. We put if we put humans at the end, at the center of that engineering problem, that solving people's issues, then it makes it a lot more efficient. And really, human factors is a thread that runs through all of these disciplines and pulls them together. So let's talk about the people. From a business perspective, the obvious one that we talked about, and it's titled in the presentation, is customers. We want to talk about the customers, but it's not just about getting them in and getting them to pay the money, because fundamentally that's what we want customers to do. We want them to come in and keep our businesses afloat. But it's about that engagement. How do we engage that customer? How do we, you know, what is their first point of contact? And then from that point, what is, you know, why do they come to you in the first place? And what is the journey? What is their experience? At the end of it, if we want to retain a customer, they've got to have a positive experience. They've got to have an experience that isn't just that, yes, I bought something, but actually I enjoyed doing that. One of the discriminators of being a small business is you can put your heart and soul into it, your personality into it. You want to have that good relationship. Talk about staff. You know, we might only have ourselves as staff. You might be running it by yourself. You might have a partner. You might have a couple of people. But even you as your own member of staff, as on your own, you have to think about your own well-being. You can't do this all of the time. You've got to, the more you look after yourself, then the more productive you are, because you're not going away sick, you're not going away, you don't have to take the downtime, you're managing that appropriately. We look at the culture of your organization. Is it a culture that people want to thrive in? Is it allowing people to come forward and give you their ideas, which therefore makes your business better? You also have suppliers. The relationship you have with your suppliers can greatly affect the timeliness of your business. If you're having to rely on things coming in to stock the shop, or if you provide the product that you need to run the business that you have, be it a sales service, be it a product business, or a service business, them sort of relationships are really quite important as well. And the other one that a lot of people forget are the other stakeholders who might not be directly working as part of your business, or they might not be your direct customer. But if your business is within a community, and that might be a physical community, a street, or a town, or it could be within a virtual community, what is that? What does that stakeholder engagement look like? Do you put forward a level of confidence to those stakeholders? And the stakeholders might be people who are investing in your business, that they might have shares within your business, and you want to make sure that if anybody gives you feedback, you can work with that on an appropriate way. So hopefully that I don't think that's exhaustive either, but I just come out with the four big groups of people I think we engage with. I think if you sat down and thought about your own business, and we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes, but you need to think about the groups of people you engage with, because they all provide something into your business, and being able to think about them, and even if it takes 10 minutes and a piece of paper, being able to sit down and work out who they are will help you work out what relationships you need to really focus on and leverage. You're all really busy people, and I fully appreciate that. And so what I quite like to do in things like this, where people might want to dip out early, is actually put the takeaway. These are the conclusions of this presentation at this point. So to give you the three main messages I want you to go away with. So given that we're halfway through, the big things I would like you to think about, and think about as we go through the rest of the presentation as well, is you need to put yourselves in the shoes of your customer. If we talked about those people, we need to get into our heads, and I suffer from this a lot, is you're not your customer. You know your business inside out. You know your product inside out. You know your service inside out. But because you know it so well and you love it, you want it to succeed because you put your heart and soul into this. That's not what your customer sees. They don't have the same relationship. So think about the journey that they actually have, not the one you'd like them to have. And also engage with them. Ask them what their experience has been like, positive and negative, because that's the only way you're going to learn. And we'll talk about surveys, things like that. But it's about making sure that you're asking real questions that can help you improve your business, not just the questions to get a tick in a box and a nice warm fuzzy feeling. When we talk about staff, they are a key asset. And really, it's about making their engagement with your business work for them. And if we engage with staff in a real, meaningful way, then actually we increase their efficiency, therefore make your business better. It reduces the errors. So if we actually, if say we've got some process-oriented thing, and that could be from the way you make a cup of coffee all the way through to how you manufacture a piece of equipment, we want to reduce the errors, because errors mean waste. Errors mean you're losing time. And so actually, if we work with the staff, we reduce all of that. And also, staff are, if we do things badly, then actually we could have accidents, incidents, and near misses. And the more we engage with staff around this piece, we reduce those as well. If we all have processes within our business, there may be formal processes that we've gone to writing down, or there might just be the ones we know how this works and how you train people. But if you make them reflective, and so they're not completely set in stone, you keep listening to your team, you keep listening to yourself about when you're doing the job through a process, if you can find a way of making it more efficient, so it actually reflects the way that you actually do things as opposed to the way that you think it should be done, then you reduce the cost of doing them processes. You eliminate waste because you end up doing things more efficiently, and you minimize the efforts and materials that go into doing it. So we can easily see that. But also going into slightly wider things as well. We can see this is taken out of a brochure that the CIHF and the IEA put out, and the website is there for you. This document goes into a lot of detail around how we can implement human factors into business to look at things like training, look at things like getting our company image up, look at the fatigue and mental physical workload of staff to make sure that we are that you're balancing what they can actually do and not exhausting them. So therefore you have better efficiency and fewer safety events. If our employees are satisfied and engaged with what they're doing, then you have lower absenteeism, you have lower staff turnover and lower training costs. So hopefully you can see that a lot of this feeds into a more successful business if we think about it from a people perspective. So I talked a lot about why we should be doing it. What should we actually do? So let's focus a bit on our customers themselves. We talked about the other stakeholders, but let's focus on our customers. So I like to put this at the front because if you're presented, so this is a business, and I took this photo a few years ago. I got this photo a few years ago, and really, you're confusing your customer already. You sort of turn around. You've got an entrance to your business. So this was a pub, and you've got the sign on the door. It's an open door for anybody to go and walk in, and you want your customers to come in through that door because that's the way you can serve them and then get the money out of them to make my business successful. But you've got the sign on the door that says pull. How does anybody pull that door to open it? You've provided them with a push plate. So the brass plate on the door is there. We all know what it means. You push it, the door opens, brilliant. But you're giving them a contradicting signal of having that pull on the door. Now, you can say, well, actually, it's just common sense, isn't it? And actually, a lot of people suggest that this whole idea of human factors is common sense. But not everybody has that common sense. Because if you look at that, and there might be a reason why you put pull on that, some people will just go and try it. Yeah, okay, they get in, that's brilliant, and it's not a problem. But if you've got a business next door to it, and in this case, there was another bar that is already got an open door and it's actually easy to access, there is a percentage of people who will look at that and say, it doesn't make sense to me. I'll go into the one that's easiest to do. We like to do the easier, as humans, we like to do the easiest thing we possibly can. So you're going to miss out on a proportion of revenue purely because you've got the wrong sign on the door. Really, all we need to do is put a push sign on the door or have a pull bar on the door to make it work. Now, it might seem like a really simplistic example, and it is, but what I would ask is, what is it you actually want your customer to do? What does your business door look like? So here, if you've got the sort of service business, you might own a cafe, you might own whatever it is, you want them to come into a physical room, into a physical building where you can serve them, you can provide them some sort of service. Same is true of a shop, but you might not have that type of business. You might have where you want them to phone you up. You might want them to WhatsApp you, whatever it is. But that process has got to be as simple as possible. The idea that some simple things, like if you've got a website, which we will go into a bit more detail. If you've got a website, try and have the proper domain name. It doesn't cost that much, but it provides that professional viewpoint. If you've got the telephone, make sure that telephone is answered in a way that you would hope to be answered if you were phoning somebody else. Most people don't like talking on the phone anymore. Most people like messaging. Most people like direct messaging people through a website or having like something like that. For some reason, and it's a cultural issue more than anything else, a lot of people don't like picking up the phone. So be cognizant of that. Be thinking about what I want to have my customer get in touch with me as easily as possible. And walk through the door like a customer. It's very difficult to do because we all have biases. As I said before, we all want our business to run. But we wanted to succeed, and we know how our things run. Ask a friend to do it, but ask your friend to be really critical, as if they don't know you, or ask a professional to come and do it, like somebody like myself. But actually, you can get just a friend to come and do it as a first stop. Get them to walk through your business process and ask them what they think. A friend of mine ran a mechanic's garage with his father and son business, and the way he expected people to come up, you go to the garage. There's if the door was open, chances are Bob was under a car fixing it, and you just go in, go hello, is anybody there? And his head would pop out, and he'd be nicest bloke you could ever meet. I like going for a pint with him, but there was a lot of people he wasn't getting as much business through as he thought, and a lot of them were going to some of the bigger chains. And really, what we highlighted was, and this was a conversation in the bar more than anything else, but we highlighted that the people don't like coming into a business and just trying to work out how to engage with somebody. You want to go and have that an initial engagement with a receptionist or something like that can sort out your problem and direct it accordingly. But it's a small business. He doesn't want to pay for a receptionist. He doesn't want to. He doesn't have the resources to have a set aside reception. So actually, one of the things that we did was just suggest have a doorbell that can be heard all the way around the business with a sign on it saying, "Please ring. We'll be with you as soon as possible." And that works because it's easy to see when you walk up to the business what you have to do, and then there is an onus there on you running the business to be able to press that button. And as soon as you hear that doorbell, go and answer it. Go and talk to the person. Drop whatever you're doing, or one of you do that, because that initial, we all know that first impressions count. That is your first impression of how well that they are engaged. And if they have that good customer journey, then they're likely to come back. So it is all about think about that door and what that looks like. I want to talk about the customer engagement in a bit of a broader perspective, because sometimes we think that you're producing your service, your business, and that you're doing it for everybody. Well, you're not, because not everybody wants to come and engage with whatever it is that you do. So it's about being, I guess, honest with yourself, honest with your business, honest with your team. And the way I like to do this, and I do this when I could be designing a cockpit for a fast jet, all the way through to some of these smart cities thing. It's a really useful tool about building a persona. So if you know that actually the thing that maybe you run an arts and crafts shop, that is you're going to focus on a particular demographic of people. So you know that maybe it's between 16 and 35. Perhaps predominantly female, or or whatever, or you might be running another type of shop that has another demographic. But actually, when you're talking about, right, I've got this age range, I've got this thing, it's hard to actually focus what you're doing on that. So we develop these things called personas, which, as you can see, I've got these cards on the right that talk about my different types of customer. And I'll develop one of these, or maybe a couple of them, or 5 of them, depending on my range, because it allows then me, when I'm talking about what my business is doing, to say I'm not just providing for, you know, anybody aged between 22 and 36. It means I can say I'm actually providing for Bob, I'm providing for Olivia, I'm providing for Mary. And when you're talking about it, it means that when you're developing a new product, a new service, you can actually focus it at people, and you can say, right, I'm going to try and hit a lot of this. And what these cards are, they're just plucking things out of the range of people that I can be involved in. And it's a really powerful tool to allow you to talk about your business. It could be tempting just to do one, but actually if you build up 2, 3, or 4, because hopefully you get different types of people through your door, but they still fall within boundaries. The next thing is to actually have that hard question again. What does your customer actually want? When they're coming to your, you know, you might be running a cafe, you might be running something that provides a service or a product. What is it your customer actually wants? You know that you want to provide the best cafe in wherever you are. You want to provide the best entertainment wherever you are. But is that actually why your customers come into your business? Find out what they actually want when they come and walk through that door, and talk by talking to them, by engaging with them. If you're selling product, on a website, what do they actually want to know about your product? And finding that type of thing means that you can then hone how you sell your product, rather than you guessing, rather than you working out what it is it's supposed to be. And this takes us on to surveys. Surveys are really interesting because, particularly if you go down the ISO 9001 route, for that quality aspect, you are strongly encouraged to go to your customers and ask them what they thought. And it's dead easy to put a quick questionnaire together that says, did you enjoy your coffee with us today? Did you enjoy, have you been able to use your product? Is it good? We've seen it through all sorts of websites now that you have these questions, which is fine. But actually, does that, just saying, you know, did they enjoy it, does that actually tell you anything? It just give you a headline that, yes, you know, 90% of your customers enjoy going with you. But actually, are they going to not tell you if they didn't? Or are they just not going to respond to a survey? Are they not going to respond to the questions? So think about the questions that you're asking, and there's a really good way of structuring how you do that. Think about when you're going to ask them. Are you going to ask them when are they enjoying their food, when they're sat there with a mouthful of food and they can't actually answer you, can't answer you meaningfully, or are they gonna ask them it after they've paid the bill, or, you know, when is the most appropriate time for the type of business you're doing to ask the question to get a meaningful output, and then actually spend some time using the answers. So if you get the answers, then it isn't just a tick in the box. It's I've had this feedback. That feedback is valuable about what it is that you're going to do in the future. So being able to use that and then develop your business from it. So then I want to deep dive into websites a little bit, because I would suggest that almost everybody has a website of some description. Now, the website can be a formal website. It could be a Facebook page. It could be just a simple one-page thing. And really, I would suggest that any business nowadays does, you know, you do have a website, because it is that everybody is so used to now Googling what they're doing that even if you've got something that you don't think you need a website for, having it almost feels like it's a basic standard nowadays. You don't necessarily have to have the whole social media thing or all that sort of bit, but the more avenues that you've got, going back to what I said earlier, is people don't necessarily want to pick up the phone nowadays. The first place that anybody searches for a business is a website. It's the most accessible piece that you've got. It's a thing that you have control over. But not every website is the same. you've got possibly, but there's more than 4 channels that you want to funnel people down, depending on the type of business that you want. So it could be that you're just there to say, why do you have a website? Well, actually, I just want to tell everyone what I do. I just want to have my marker in the cyber domain that registers that my business is out there. So I call that the leaflet in the sky, the leaflet in cyberspace. And what you want is, it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be quite simple. And the simpler it is to maintain. If you want to have the latest jobs, your latest projects on there, that needs to be updated. That takes time and effort to do so. So you need to think about how much time and effort you're willing to put into it. But fundamentally, you're just putting a leaflet up there to wave a flag and say, I'm here. So make sure it does that. Make sure it does showcase what it is that you're doing. On that first high front page, it should say very clearly what it is that you'll do and what the scope of it is that you do is there. So if you're an electrician, it should say that you're an electrician. What area do you cover? What type of work do you do? Without having to navigate away from that first page, it should be basically a one-hit wonder. And think about as well just how much space that takes up, because if you're having to start scrolling down a page for things, that can end up being, you want that information to be there right in front of you. The next step on from that is, it's not just a leaflet in the sky, but you actually want to use that as a channel for getting in touch with you. And I say that's different from the leaflet in the sky, because actually, if the primary reason for your website, and same is true of Facebook as well, you want people to get in touch with you, make sure that is as easy as possible. So if it's by telephone, where is the number? It should be on every single page. If it's by email, your email should be on every single page, and it should be easy to see. It should be at the top of that page, so people can look and go and have that constant reinforcement. So make that as easy as possible. If you're going to have a chat bot, if you're going to have a WhatsApp, or whatever it is, whatever that mechanism that you want people to engage with you, that needs to be on that top, so you don't have to scroll anywhere to see it, and it should be repeated all through the website to drive that message across. The next one is perhaps we're getting a more complicated website that you want to sell goods, and that could be whatever it is that you're showing. You need to have a picture of it on there, so you're demonstrating what the good is, a good description, but fairly short and concise, with the price, with any delivery costs, etc., etc. So fully describing it. But this is where I go back to what I said on the previous slide about making sure that you're advertising the elements of your product that the customer wants to see, not necessarily that you want to see. So making sure that if you're selling a bag or something like that, that you can see all the different views of the bag, not just the best view. Because it is very tempting. We want to put our products in the best light possible. Absolutely right. But also, a lot of people want to see everything about it before they engage. And the reason we want to do that is because you want people to make that sale on the website. What you don't necessarily want is for people to say, actually, I like the look of that, but I'm not entirely sure it fits my needs because I can't see everything, to then either not buy from your site, go and find it from another site, or wait and go and see something physically, because you're then either delaying that purchase, or they might go somewhere else. You want to close that sale there and then. So make sure that you are putting out there what they want to know about their products, not what you want to know about their products. And you might want to do a bit more than that. You might want to do client management. So a login area, an area where you have discourse with clients, either privately, or you might use that as part of your customer relationship tool, customer relationship manager, which again is fine. It's a perfectly great way of doing things. But just make sure that the way of that engagement, the security, the management of it works for them. And it might be convenient for you, but is that a convenient way to manage your customer? Are they getting that experience that they actually want? So again, it's another door into what it is that you're doing. Go back and see if that door works for your clients. Websites, when you get them, you get what you pay for, if I'm being brutally honest. You'll always get a website that looks pretty, that looks nice, that looks good. And actually, the more you engage with a designer, the better it will look. And that's great. There are lots of free options out there, such as like WordPress and things like that, which can allow you a really good stepping stone into a good-looking website. But what we tend not to do and what we don't think about is the functional checking. So going back to this idea, if you've got these 4 channels, there's other channels as well. What is it you actually want that website to do? Is it a leaflet in the sky, or is it a client manager? Or are you doing sales? Can you do what the main role is of your website to do? Can you make that sale? Can you contact that person really simply and really easily? What some website providers don't do is that functional checking. It will look pretty, it will look great, it'll look enticing, but does it do what it is that you need it to do? And then the other bit, which is really important, is inclusivity. Does it, it might look pretty, it might look amazing, but if you're colorblind, does it look the same? Can you differentiate between the elements? If you're blind, does it have all the alt tags on any of the pictures, so you can at least that person can have the audio description of what is being shown on the website. So yes, there are inclusivity standards out there, and most website providers will make sure that it's up there, but it is about making sure that that everybody who engages with your website can get at your product, can get at your service, because you want as many people through the door as you possibly can, your metaphorical door, to make money. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a different way of looking upon a website. When we talk about staff, I'm not going to focus too much upon this, but really about making sure that we've got the right environment for what it is that we're doing. So we need to think about the staff safety, the staff processes, the well-being of our team. As I mentioned right at the beginning, a happy team is going to be one that actually functions for your business much better. So it's about the environment that you make. So what is your style of management, your style of leadership? Leadership and management are not the same thing. And really, when we talk about human error, people make mistakes, or mistakes happen within a business. How you react to that mistake is going to make so much difference to the way that your business runs. We talk about a thing called a just culture, and the idea of a just culture is if somebody makes a mistake, that they feel empowered, that they could come and tell you that they've made a mistake, and you won't just sit there and either fire them from the off, but you'll actually work with them to solve the problem and make sure it doesn't happen again. Technology has a huge way of being able to support our staff. So if your staff is having to do something repetitive, so they might be moving boxes, if they're putting stuff out of the, either storing it in a warehouse or packaging it for it to go out. So if they've got something repetitive, they've got something strenuous, what can technology do to support them in either lifting, being able to support them in the way that they work? Because again, if you support them in doing that, it means they can work for longer, they can be more productive. So any areas that you see that people are doing more repetitive things, more strenuous things, you can design that out and you can work with them to help them work for longer. Even in the office, it can be quite significant. So is the desk setup the one we got? We should be doing DSE assessments, but they've actually got they're not just a hoop to jump through. There's something about making sure that your staff have the right setup to make them more productive, to make sure that they're not going to go out with backache, with any sort of strains if they're having to sit at the desk, making sure they take the right breaks. If they're doing something a bit more than that, have they got the right PPE available? And again, it's the PPE is there to we might feel a bit of health and safety gone mad, but actually make sure that our staff stay within the business for longer, and don't come to any harm in doing so. So this is the same slide again that what you saw earlier, and I hope that in the past 30 minutes I've been able to give you a bit of an idea, a bit of a overview on these messages. So basically, making sure that you remember that you're not your own customer. Try and spend 10 minutes or so working out what their journey is actually, what it's about, what is their experience. If they have a good experience, and I think this is something that we're perhaps learning from the States as well as anything else, that whole, even if you're selling a product, the service that they get, that a client gets behind that, means that they're more likely to come back. One of the beauties about running a small business is you can stamp your own personality all over it. And if people see your enthusiasm, your motivation, your joy in what you're doing, that will rub off on them. And therefore you get more productive, you get more return customers. Your staff are that key asset. It might just be you, it might be a couple of you. No matter what the number, think about the processes that you're doing, because the chances are, if they're efficient and you're not having to put people out, they will use the processes. Dictating people to use processes is a way to get them to leave and go and do something else because we don't like doing it, and that really fits with our human behavior. And also, the chance of reducing error, accidents, incidents, and near misses is obviously very key to that. And then, these human-centered processes, they help us reduce waste, they help us reduce costs, and minimizing the effort. So therefore, minimizing how much time and effort and materials I need to put into producing my product, producing my service. So that comes to the end of my presentation. If you want to know more about ergonomics here in the UK, the ergonomics.org.uk is the website for the CIHF. That guide is available again at that on that website, or you can just use the link in the bottom half. If you want to get in touch with me, my email address is up there, and you can also get in touch with me on social media. I'm not that difficult to find, or you can find our website. So with that, I will bring that to the end, and then perhaps, Rob, we can have a bit of a chat about what your thoughts were.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you, Barry, for a fantastic presentation then. What I particularly liked is, we've used the terms ergonomics, human factors, but you've really summarized things with those key takeaways there, those 3 key takeaways in language that we can all understand. I think has been really useful and really beneficial for us all, I'm sure. So thank you, Barry. So a lot of questions that we've had in, this comment just come in there, a very good presentation. So clearly I'm not the only one who found that useful there, Barry. So just, I'm conscious of time, so we'll dive into a few of the questions we've had, if that's okay. And a logical question, I think, to come to first would be, what would you suggest my first steps should be in putting into practice what you've talked about?
So I guess the first bit is to have that reflective time on your own business. So whatever it is that you're delivering, have that time to think about it and just go and think about, who is my customer, what should it be, what it is that they do. A next step then would then to be to get a friend who can be constructively critical with you. Now that might be a friend, it might be a mentor, it might be somebody within the FSB, it might be within that community, to say, say, look, can you drop onto my website? Can you almost act as a secret shopper type of thing, and then tell me what you think. Give me your unfettered opinion. Obviously, what I'd love to say is come and have a chat with me, or one of my colleagues, one of my peers. We could do that, but you can actually do the first steps on that by yourself. And once you've got into that element of saying, of being objective, of saying I'm open to having this type of approach, because it sounds weird, doesn't it? The fact that we want people to come into our business, but we don't necessarily think about them. But we see it all the way through industry, and it is something that is, it's common sense in it, but it's not. It's because of we have our own biases and things like that. So get a friend on board would be my first step.
And having, so I without going into too much detail about me personally, I set up a business about 15 years ago. I did ask some friends. They told me actually what I wanted to hear. So the key thing that you said there is somebody who's going to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, absolutely, because that's the element of it, because that's where I get annoyed with surveys to a certain extent as well, because they're just telling you what you want to hear. And it's great because you can say you've asked for feedback. If you're part of ISO 9001, you tick a box, that's brilliant, but it doesn't actually help. Doesn't actually help you. And your ISO 9001 or any survey like that doesn't help you put stuff on the bottom line, which is what we want at the end of the day, for you to have a successful small business and to manage your time within your business effectively.
Yeah. Got you. Another comment just come in. I'm amazed at how, whether you are in a small business or a large corporate, human factors is really essential. So I think that's validating some of the things you've talked about there, Barry. Another question we've had, you talked about technology. A question we've had in, any tips on using artificial intelligence or technology to retain customers?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody's talking about ChatGPT and other versions of that that we terrified that they will make everybody go extinct and things like that. But actually, any sort of tool like that that you can find and afford that will make your life easier, I thoroughly recommend doing it for a number of reasons. ChatGPT we use quite extensively now. So if you're wanting to do, say, some marketing material, but you want to get an idea of somewhere to start, then ChatGPT is a really good influence into that. If you want to ask questions, if you want to be do some analysis work or things like that, ChatGPT I think that's the AI that everybody can get a grip of at the moment and can get access to. It's really, really good. A word of caution is it will not give you a final result. And it will not replace the skill of a, say, marketing professional or an analyst or something like that. But what it can do is give you a good starting point. So certainly at this moment, we wanted to develop a new brochure, but we were time driven, so I couldn't engage with it. I needed to get something out and turned around. But there's nothing worse than sitting there with that blank page of going, where do I start? You either use something that you've used previously and iterate it, and that might not be the game changer you want it to be. So we use ChatGPT in that to say, give it some cues, give it some ideas, and then see what it came out with. And it allowed us to go, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way, or it acts a bit like an objective friend, because you could do that. So a lot of it is engage with it, have a go with it. It might work for your business, it might not. Don't be afraid of it, but do be cognizant of what it is telling you. So just because ChatGPT, as the example, says something, doesn't necessarily mean it's right. So if it's giving you any fact, go and check them, because sometimes, ironically, it being, we wanting technology like that to mimic a human example. Well, we as humans, we make mistakes, or we can forget things, or whatever. Well, ChatGPT does the same. So going ahead and if it gives you hard facts, well, I would check that they're right to begin with, and then also as that message is there, whatever it's developed, is that exactly right for you? But it's a really, really good starting point. Then you've got other tools as well that are spawning off that. So keep an eye on them, and work with them. The other bit I would suggest strongly looking at as well is cloud computing. Now, remember that cloud is just somebody else's PC, but aside from that, the way that you can get software now as a service means that you're developing things, or you're using things that are probably more scalable for your business. And accessibility now is pretty much a given. We all assume that we can get onto PCs or through our phone and where we can. That's all really good. But actually think again about where you're operating, and does your business actually, might you work somewhere that doesn't have good accessibility? So if you're on the top of a mountain in Wales, for example, will you be able to get the access that you need in order to be able to what you want to do? So the technology is a really good savior in many things, but just remember its limitations.
Great. We've got 3 more questions I'd like us to get through, if that's okay. Can I just remind people, we do have a few minutes. If you do want to put any questions in, the question and answers function is open there. So a couple of other questions have come in, Barry. I'm a little bit afraid about looking into making improvements on the basis of potential costs. Do you have any, from your experience of many different sectors, do you have any tips for keeping costs down?
So this is a really weird one from a human factors perspective, because it's that horrible phrase of it's a spend to save. And there is stuff out there that says that there has been research done that shows for every pound you spend on human factors engagement early on in a project, early on in an endeavor, you save £100 down the line. And that £100 is born out of rework. So if you haven't quite pitched your product properly, if you haven't quite got your service exactly where it needs to be, having to do that work to nudge it in the right direction. And actually, if we'd taken a human factors approach really early on, it would have saved you that money, which from some of the stuff that we're doing might not seem that much. On some of the projects I've worked on, or I've seen, and examples I've seen, it's saved hundreds of millions of pounds. So, it is scalable in that respect. But my first steps will be to, again, going back to look at your own attitude first. Try and look at your business objectively first. So you can do a certain amount of it in-house, but don't be afraid to reach out to a professional. A one engagement session with somebody, it's a bit like a marketing professional or any other sort of advisor into the business. You might just need 1 or 2 sessions with them to get you along the right sort of way, or at least give you the confidence that yes, it's going to be productive for your business.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid of reaching out.
Yeah, got you. Somebody has asked, you talked about human-centered processes. Could you give just 1 or 2 more examples of what is and what isn't a human-centered process?
So the biggest one I see examples with this now is around our IT policies. So IT and cybersecurity is such a hugely important piece at the moment, that we sort of think that the computer is there to eat us, the internet is there to bite us. But actually, people who are hacking your business, people who are trying to get the information within your business, they're just another person. Now, there might be another person down the road or in another country, but it is people trying to get at your information. So if we want people to, within our business, if we want ourselves to be safe, then make it easy to do so. You could go right along one way. If you don't want people to use USB sticks within your machine, disable all the USBs or put something over them so they can't use them. People within our businesses are not generally malicious. People are wanting to do things in a way that makes it easy for them and delivers what it is that you want to deliver. So if the shortcuts there to be had, chances are we'll use them because we're human. So, and this is actually one of the root causes of cybersecurity issues, is where people are trying to take a bit of a shortcut. They might be under time pressure, they might be under whatever to make their lives a little bit easier, and that's why people use that. But also having things in place to make sure that people know that if there is a problem or an error, or they might have done something, so might be victim of a phishing attack. So where somebody sends an email purporting to be from somebody within the business, then just make sure that people have got the ability, that culture, to be able to turn around and put their hand up and say, I think something's gone wrong. We've got our own example of this. We had when just after we started the business, we got our first member of staff in. She got an email from me, reportedly, saying, can you pay this invoice, please? Now, at the time, we were lucky that we were waiting for an invoice to a client to pay. And so actually there wasn't the money in the account. That this asked for quite a lot of money. They clearly thought I was better than I was. But they turned around and said, oh, pay this. Now, then my team member rang me up, said, we don't have the money in the account for this. Why are you asking for this? And I'm like, asking for what? And that was a really good exercise, that she didn't follow through with it, but also for us, it was learning about, she felt she could come to me and say, this has come up, what's been the why? And then we've also been able to reflect on that and say, right, well, anytime we do an invoice like that or a request like that, we will follow it up by another means. So if I send an email saying, can you pay this? I will then also either say, I've just sent you an email, or a message through say Teams or something like that. So learning about how to engage with that type of thing is certainly with the technology is really key.
Got you. That's useful. Thank you. And then I think there's time for one last question, if it's okay. And this is quite a specific question. How do we make spaces easier for parents, babies, and toddlers within our business? So I suppose there's a definition of easier to discuss, perhaps. But any general thoughts there, Barry?
I think one thing the pandemic has taught us is this idea about flexible working. Is before the pandemic, I think there was this drive that when you're at work, you don't have any other distractions, and you focus on it. And a lot of that was down to, well, we're going to have a as soon as you start allowing people to work from home, then clearly they're going to be more interested in the TV and that sort of thing. And I think that has been largely disproved. Most people saw productivity go up during the pandemic, those who were able to do so. Obviously, the hospitality sector was a very different beast. But the people who could work from home actually ended up working longer, ended up working and delivering more rather than less. So the more we can do now to facilitate working people in the most productive way is a good thing. One thing that we're now finding is, and certainly we find this as a business as well, is people do want to come back to the office, but want to have that flexibility in play. So if we want to have truly inclusive work environments, then the more we can do to either open up people being able to merge their work and home life can be a better thing, but also respecting what it is that they do. So I would take it back right to the beginning and have a chat with the staff as a whole to be able to do that, because actually you might want to be for one parent, you might want them to be able to bring in a young child, but we need to make sure that doesn't distract from other people as well. So what is the workspace set up like? Are they but rather than just saying a blanket yes or a blanket no, engage with the team, find out their views, and see, and they will generally come with solutions.
And I guess, you know, the question has been asked, parents, easier spaces for parents, babies and toddlers. The question was within our business, but I suppose the general principle that you talked about, asking people, asking staff, asking customers, would apply where maybe parents, babies and toddlers need to be considered in sort of a kindergarten or a nursery context. But the principles that you've highlighted would apply equally across the board.
Yeah, it would. And so if you're wanting to, say you're running a cafe or something like that, but some cafes allow dogs in, for example, some don't. It depends the sort of, you know, what is it you want to put across, and what, again, looking at the demographic you want to engage with. Do you want to have young children within within your cafe or something like that? If you do, then brilliant, cater for it. Make sure that you can get buggies and stuff around the tables and in the right areas. Make sure that you've got things to entertain children with, rather than just having it as a nice to have. Embrace it.
Yeah, got you. We are just about out of time. I'm sure that there'll be lots for us all to take away from that session today. So thank you again, Barry. If you found the session useful, please do leave us a Trustpilot review. Please also visit our FSB website to see what other in-person and virtual events we've got coming up over the next few months. All that remains really is thank you all for attending. Thank you also to Shona, who's been there in the background. Shona, the event couldn't happen without you. So I know you're lurking there in the background. I hope you can hear me. Big thank you to Shona. And of course, a huge thank you to Barry for a great session again. So we look forward to seeing you all at future FSB events. In the meantime, sincere best wishes and have a great day. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.